Perfect. We only have half an hour today, so we're going to start. Thank you everyone for joining. Today, I'm delighted to have with me on this webinar at VP and Chief Evangelist at UiPath, Chet Chambers. This is your host, Ahmed Zaidi. I'm the Chief Automation Officer here at Accelerate. We're a partner of UiPath and do a lot of work with them. Chet, I will let you say a few words, and people who know Chet know that he doesn't chew his words, or and he loves to talk. So, Chet, with that, please intro.
Well, happy to be here. My name's Chet Chambers. I'm a decade-long RPA practitioner. I've been with UiPath about 2 years now, scaled RPA 3 different times, and here to talk to you about how you can change the way your company does business.
Perfect, perfect. So that's a great segue, right? Our topic, this is a series of webinars that we're focusing at the vision that UiPath and Daniel was very eloquent about it, very vocal about it from day one. A robot for every person, and what that really means, and how how to implement that, how to get you started, so how you can think about enabling your organization so that it's not about not so much about the robot for every person, but it's all about what that results in. The result of a robot for every person is every person being more productive than they are today. So thinking about what you can do with that increase in productivity for your organization is extremely important. So as I was doing preparing the presentation for this webinar, my 10-year-old came up to me, and I was explaining the vision of UiPath as a robot for every person. And he, interestingly, he said, "Oh, so that's like Ford, where he wanted a car for every person, and cars are really expensive to build and buy, and he had a vision to make a car for every person." I thought that's actually a very apt comparison there. And so I think it is a very apt comparison, and I was thinking about how that was enabled. And the way Henry Ford enabled that was making it easier to build through the assembly line, and doing it at scale, right? I think it's a known fact that a lot of folks talk about today. How do I scale my automation programs? How do I take it to a scale where I can say that my productivity is up across the board, and my cost is down across the board, my error rates are down across the board. So I think that vision really is an apt comparison. Chet, I would love for you to talk a little bit about UiPath's vision of what really the robot for every person means.
Sure. So speed is good, but speed at scale is what is required to move the needle on the P&L. And that what a robot for every person is about is, let's take those things that you do every day that eat up your time, and let's let the robots do those. Logging in, start your day. Why not open your tray, hit your Start My Day robot, and have it log you into the 5 systems you need to log into, and take you down to the screen where you're going to be doing most of your work? Well, there's 5 minutes right there. And what about when I'm going to be out of office? I open my tray, my out of office spot, I give it the date range and the reason that I'm going to be out, and it updates Outlook, it updates Slack, it updates whatever the other systems you have there. Well, there's another 4 or 5 minutes, and expense reports, and so on and so on and so on. The idea here is that let the robots do the things that are repeatable. Let's take minutes, and it doesn't take long to take hours out of every person's day, and it's more important that we do it for everyone across the organization. And I love your Ford analogy. It's the same as a calculator. It's the same as a PC on every desk. There will be a robot on every desktop, and now is the time to automate and to embrace this change coming out of COVID. We all got hurt, and we're going to have to rethink how we do business. A robot for every person can make you much more efficient.
Perfect. That is awesome. That's a great explanation of that vision. So digging straight into how RPA enables this, or process automation enables this, and talking a little bit about the jargon so that everyone's clear on what we're going to speak about in the following slides. There's generally speaking, and there's areas in between as well, but generally speaking, you would put robot models in 3 types of models: a fully unattended robot that is able to take a task and complete it all by itself, like processing invoices or loading data into systems like SAP through Excel files and things like that. Those are fully unattended automations, and most folks here, I assume, would be familiar with fully unattended automations. If not, feel free to reach out to us, and there's tons and tons of material out there. How a robot for every person or a scale beyond the unattended automation is achieved is through enabling a couple of other modes of robots. A hybrid mode where a human interacts with an unattended robot through some means to either kick off a robot or do some task, provide some information so that the unattended robot can do the work, or an attended in tandem on the PC with the human doing the work as the human is doing something else. So onboarding a team, for example, to provision some IDs and things like that. A person may have a form that they fill out on the attended robot, and the robot goes in and creates the Outlook account and the Exchange account and the system of, HR system and the accounting system and so on and so forth, all those. And by the way, it also logs into the Office Depot or Staples website and so orders the name tag and whatever else that you need to do, right? So all those things that can be done, or in a call center, for example, where a person's talking to someone while a robot's working in the back. We'll talk about some of those ideas as well, but it was important to first sort of provide an overview on what those models are. And today we'll talk more about the attended or in tandem and hybrid robots, more so than the unattended. The way to deploy a lot of these robots and to actually have that be done at scale, the opportunities come in two flavors. And anecdotally speaking, this is our experience of having done this. We're a niche provider. This is the only thing that we do, and Chet will talk a little bit more about these opportunities. But they come in sort of two flavors. One is sort of, you have a large group of individuals who are doing similar tasks, like in shared service centers or call centers, and for those folks, you may want to build a professionally built automation that is deployed at scale at hundreds or thousands of agents or something like that, where they're assistive, they run with and assist the user on tasks that they do daily. Things like starting up, as Chet mentioned, starting up your day. We have a customer who it took about 10 to 12 minutes for folks to log into the various systems that they needed to log into and the screens. And in fact, that 10 to 12 minutes was really more like 15 to 20 minutes, because a person would drink a cup of coffee, and while they log in, they go grab a glass of water, so on and so forth, right? So they have a robot that just starts up all the applications. That 15-minute has now been reduced to 5 minutes, and imagine getting 10 minutes of every agent in a 500-person call center agent every day. That adds up very quickly. So that's the left side of the screen that you see professionally built automations. And on the right side of the screen, you see personal repetitive tasks. I say this very cautiously, right? Very similar to sort of some macro technologies that are there. I have my personal macros in Excel and things like that, but they enable me to do things quicker. These are automations that were built by the users themselves, and they're generally done for personal use or possibly their immediate team use. Things like entering expenses, some sales activities, creating sales records or following up and things like that. Just simple data entry from spreadsheets. We all have those tasks. Chet, any other ideas that you think that you've seen in your experience would be great to talk about here?
Sure. So on the left side of the screen, that's what we talked about. They're going to be built by a core team and given to everyone, because everyone logs in, everyone does expense reports, everyone logs out. But over here on the right-hand side, this is where it gets really exciting as you start to empower your users, your employees, and you make that call out, calling all power users, get behind this program and let's change the way that we do business. Martha, she comes in on Monday, she runs 3 reports, waits for it to finish, extracts the data, formats the Excel spreadsheet, and posts it out to SharePoint. Why would she ever do that again? She's going to go in there, she's going to build a robot to do that, and now anyone else in her department who has to perform that same task or a task very similar, she can now backhaul it through the COE, and that can be distributed to others. If she's processing invoices and there's a part where you have to draw from 3 different systems, or maybe you have to go out to a portal, when she builds that automation, it can now be shared to all of the others that perform that function. And that's where this thing really gets powerful. Nobody knows an individual's bottlenecks or the time sucks that exist in their job better than they do. And when you empower them to start making automations, as opposed to everything being done on the back end, you can start to harness the power of all of your employees. And that's where this thing really gets big.
Perfect. That's awesome. Just to give you sort of put this into context and have people sort of a real life idea of how this works, right? This is an example of a digital assistant that we built for a large retirement services provider, and they had this was money out when people call in and they want to know what their options are for a loan. The general process, and we've all been through this. You call up, the person says, what's your account number, what's your mother's maiden name, what's the last four of your social, so on and so forth. After those niceties, you engage, right? The person says, what can I help you with? And you start explaining what your problem is. You've already through IVR said, I am here for this. So the person that is doing this already is assigned to that particular task. And then the person says, hold on, please, let me look up your information in this system. Let me look up your information on that system. Then they do some calculations and so on and so forth. And after they're done with their calculations, they provide you whatever your loan repayment options are. The robot enabled this agent to actually work to pay more attention and engage with the customer more, while the robot was doing the mundane navigation and the calculation that was all pretty much rules based. And you had to navigate to 4 screens and 4 different applications, extract data out of those applications into an Excel spreadsheet, do a quick calculation of what their limits and their repayment options are. Right after authentication, the bot got kicked off, started navigating and started calculating, and by the time the person was done explaining what they wanted, the agent had all the information, all the applications open to the right screen, all the repayment options that they generally provide to a customer already open in their Excel spreadsheet, and they were able to say, oh, cool, these are your options, and start engaging more. And in fact, this ended up, the advantage of this was a reduction on the call time of an 8-minute call time by 2 to 5 minutes. I mean, that is amazing. That is tremendous. And because of the volume of the calls, this was a tremendous save as well. What they actually saw, the customer saw, is that not only were the agents able to engage, they had extra time left over to actually do upsells and things like that. So not only was this a money save, this was actually an opportunity for them to increase revenue through upsells and other services that they could provide to the customers. So this is a very good example of a professionally built robot that was assistive and was able to provide a time save as well as a quality of service improvement for the customers. Chet, I'm assuming you've seen more of these
Oh yeah.
in your life. So if you want to talk about a couple of them or one of them, that'll be great.
Yeah, there's some additional value here that you didn't even record. So your hold times also went down because your call times went down. So same number of agents were able to handle more calls. And the part that I always got really excited about was the after call work, where they have to go in and update those 4 or 5 systems with what happened on the call. You have another robot set up, all the information is entered in there. He tells the robot, or she tells the robot to go. It goes and updates those other systems. They can immediately get back on the phone, take that next call. And the thing that I really love about these is now the agent has time to talk with the customer and to make that customer feel important. And customer satisfaction is going to be where it's at, especially coming out of COVID. A lot of competition out there. You have got to make those customers feel loved, and you can do that if you've got a few more minutes to spend with them instead of digging around on 4 and 5 systems. I love this use case.
Absolutely, absolutely. Speaking of which, the after call work is in the robot is in the works, so that's a great thing. Perfect. So we talked about we talked a little bit about here about a professionally built the left side of the screen that I showed you earlier. I wanted to talk about take the next 10 minutes to talk about how do you enable the citizen developer that we talked about, right? So we all know that you have professional developers. Their job is to develop automations. They have a good understanding of program, some level of programming skills on and so forth. But how do how do you enable this at scale? And what Chet and I spoke about earlier, how do we get, hundreds or thousands of people that are within my organization to do their own automations, right? And that's where, enter the citizen developer, right? The citizen developer is sort of a power user, if you may, or even they don't even have to be power users. They can build their attended automations for themselves, and it is fair to say that the leader in this space has really been UiPath, where they've sort of introduced a product very specifically addressing the persona of the person who's doing the automation. I think that is really interesting. So these citizen developers, we have later on in this series, we have programs that webinars that will talk about how what our approach is to enabling this, but it's really important to understand that enabling a large group of citizen developers can result in tremendous amounts uh, uh, of automation within your organization. How UiPath does this is through a product called Studio X, which is their version of UI Studio. Chet, you want to talk a little bit about Studio X?
Yeah, so the great thing about Studio X is imagine going bowling if you're a terrible bowler. Well, it's a not very fun game and you don't score many points. But if they'll take those bumpers and slide those bumpers down the gutters, now you're a pretty good bowler. That ball's going to travel down the center of the lane, even though it may ricochet off of the bumpers. Studio X is a lot like that, and it's wizard driven. It's very, very simple to use. But what it does is it empowers all of the individuals in your organization to focus on the things that suck up their time. And as they're able, nobody knows their bottlenecks better than them. The idea of a few core developers sitting in the dark room building out automations for everyone is still prevalent, but that's not all there is anymore. And now we are going to be able to harness the power of the entire organization to understand those employees know their jobs better than any developer is going to on the back end. And when we equip them to help themselves, and we motivate the entire organization to get behind the RPA platform, understand you're talking about real change now. You save 20 minutes a day across 10,000 employees. That's $30 million in value over the course of a year, and you facilitate that by harnessing the power of the employees you already have. And these tools, Studio X was built such that the citizen developer can't hurt themselves, they can't hurt the system, and they can't hurt the company, but they can bring benefit by streamlining their day and saving those minutes here and a few more minutes there, giving them the time to do one more cycle of whatever it is that they do, whether it's another batch of invoices or another set of POs or whatever their job is. As we start to free capacity up, now they can do more than they've ever been able to do before. Studio X is no code. It's drag and drop. It's workflow based. And it's something that every user inside your organization should be using to change the way that your company does business.
Absolutely. We love it, and the beauty of all of this is it is built on top of the traditional studio product. You decide that, oh, look, this is a very cool thing that someone has developed. We should sort of harden it, professionalize it, give it to another 300 users. That is an awesome thing to do. You're able to take that directly and be able to do this. So definitely enables your automation at a large scale. We want to give, I'm aware of the time, and I want to give some ideas. This is really from a few of the just a few of the hundreds of ideas that we have seen come through as we have enabled our customers. We had folks who were doing SAP operations. We had an HR person that spent a lot of time going through employee competency trainings reports and sending them all reminders and things like that. Onboarding and offboarding of users for seasonal employees was a big deal. They had a lot of seasonal employees coming in and out, and around their heavy seasons, folks were busy. There were up to 5 people just sitting there doing onboarding and offboarding, and they were able to not do all of them. They did only a few of them, but based on that, they were able to process so many more, so much quicker, all of that good stuff. It's been tremendous sort of influx of ideas that we've been getting. Saving anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours per day of the individuals doing this, which is tremendous amounts of savings that we're seeing across the board. I think we've sort of really all spoken about the benefits. What I want to really talk about, and I've been in enough conversations with enterprise stakeholders that have brought up the history of enabling the users with automation tools that are somewhat codey, for the technical word, right? Codish. But I get the same questions. Like, how are we going to make sure that we don't have the same technical debt problems that we had before? I come from a capital markets background. We just couldn't take away Excel macros from our traders and trade assistants, and they all loved it. And eventually those things get big, and there's issues with people leaving. You don't know what's happening. You don't know how it's being written. You don't have governance over it. So I really wanted to bring that up and say, hey, how is this different? How this is different is the automations are centrally managed and governed through an orchestrator. You have complete, from a central governance perspective, you have complete view into what is happening, how it is being run, what are the different steps that are being run, because it's in a standard sort of quote unquote language of workflow, UiPath workflow. Other people are able to understand it, and you can control and provision the appropriate people in the licensing through a central governance mechanism, which really after explaining this to the CISO and the CIOs and the CTOs of the organization, they really say, oh, I wish we had all of this governance and control over all the other type of automations that we give to our users, like the macros and the things that are built into various platforms for automation. Chet, any anecdotes from your experience with the
Sure.
security organization around this topic?
Yeah, this is where your IT folks need to take a breath and rest assured that all of the security issues have been handled. There are no security questions that haven't been answered. The technology to be able to do this has been there for a little while. What UiPath waited on before we brought it public was to make sure that governance is there. I'm a 25+ year IT guy, and I have started and shut down so many shadow IT groups that that was a great joy in life. That is not what this is. This is going to be managed exactly the way every other function in the organization is managed. It's all backhauled through a central system. You can see every step every bot took. So complete traceability and trackability are here. Otherwise, this doesn't work on a grand scale. So one of the great things, and there's a great deal of thought and work has gone into making sure that the security and the compliance is here. You manage Martha as a human now. When you manage the robotic form of Martha, it's going to be managed in exactly the same way. There is no Wild West here. All the rules of law are followed, and it's complete traceability and trackability is there.
Perfect. And while you were speaking, I moved to the next slide, which actually talks about all these things, right? There's access restriction through policies at user level, at the ability to say you can go to these websites and not those applications or those websites because we have some legal issues, so on and so forth. The ability to restrict individual activities within a particular automation and say you can use this activity but not this activity, so on and so forth. Creating custom validation best practice rules. These are all things that are enabled through the platform, which really I think these controls truly make this a product that the whole organization from a technical debt and technical sort of governance perspective can feel very comfortable about. By the way, just logistically, if you have any questions, feel free to send them through in the questions chat panel on your webinar. This is sort of the last slide, and I think we're almost at the last few minutes. There are a few questions that have come in. I will ask those questions. Here's the information, and feel free to reach out to any one of us. We're more than happy to answer any questions, share our experiences. I think, Chet, there's a question that comes through,
Okay.
and it's talking about, how do you sort of, what are the big challenges people are seeing when you take this idea up to sort of, how do you sort of socialize this idea, and what are the challenges that people face in deploying these things? What should I look out for? I guess that's what this question is asking.
Sure. So the biggest problem or the biggest hurdle that you'll have is them doing nothing. Them not grabbing on and moving forward. Look, it's time to upskill. It's time to reskill. It's time to get your organization behind an RPA platform and change the way your company does business. I love your poster here. Imagine putting the face of your CEO of whatever company you're in on Uncle Sam's face there, and that is exactly what we're talking about. So the big mistakes people make, they don't learn to do the documentation. They don't take active steps. They don't socialize this. Show your wins. Because this is not a typical IT project. This is something that happens quickly. ROI is very big. It's safe and secure as a living layer inside your organization. So get out there and get after it.
Perfect. Perfect. In fact, my follow-up to that, what are some best practices to measure the value that you're getting out of this, Chat?
Cost avoidance, risk avoidance, audit, SOX, compliance, accuracy, and then capacity, which is the number of man hours removed from the workforce, freeing them up to do more valuable work. Those 5 things make up the value of a single automation, and multiple automations go on a single bot.
Okay, perfect. There's somebody asking the question, do we need to have a technical background in order to create the bots?
Absolutely not. You have to have a willingness to go out there, take the free training, and become skilled. This is not writing code the old way. This is about grabbing a function off of the left-hand side, dragging it into a workflow, and then configuring it to run in your environment. You do not have to be technical to
Yep.
be a Studio X developer.
We enable business users all the time within a matter of a few hours, over a few days, and they produce tremendous amounts of great automations that we've seen that has been extremely successful. So absolutely, that was the whole idea. I think going back to the first slide, it was make it easy and do it at scale. So this is the make it easy part, which is one of the big things. Perfect. In terms of adoption in the industry, Chet, you have a good view into this. We have our own view. Can you talk about some of the somebody's asking whether where this has shown value, and what are sort of the large scale deployments that you've seen? I know a few off the top of my head, but would love to hear your thought on it.
You could pick the industry, and I could give you a company in that industry. Oil and gas is huge. Banking and finance is huge. And it's not just huge in that industry. If you look at that business, everybody buys something, everybody sells something, everybody moves data from here to there, everybody has multiple systems. So it's not just one area, it's every area in the organization that benefits from automation. And it's not just one industry, it's every industry benefits from automation.
That is awesome. Um, uh, what is the average time? Interesting question. Look, I think the average time on a professional automation can range anywhere from 4 weeks to 12 weeks, depending on how complex it is. By any measure, comparing it to your alternative of developing applications, that's very quick. And on the citizen developed automations, again, these folks are doing this on the side, right? This is not their job. So we see people spending a few hours every day, and within a couple of days, they have a working automation. So the time frame to develop an automation is actually pretty short. for these automations.
Yeah, and if you get task capture involved where you can actually record the function and export it and build out the skeleton of the bot in an automated way, I see automations in hours and days as opposed to days and weeks for these smaller, simpler user-led automations.
Absolutely. There's a question around what training name. Please send us an email. We'll send you the link to exactly where you can find that training. UiPath.com. The academy is right there, and you're not only able to get the academy, but you're also able to do a trial version of the software for free. No strings attached. So you're more than happy to share that information with you as well. With that, we're at 12:32. We're 2 minutes over our time. Chet, it was a pleasure having you on this webinar. We
Happy to
really
be here.
appreciate our partnership. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you very much, Chet.
Have a great day.
Take care.